Thompson, trustee.
Rosanna Santiago, clerk of the board.
Gina Young, parent. Jamie Sumas, parent.
Jimmy Hoffman, assistant principal at high school.
Mike Minty, assistant principal at Timberlake Middle School.
That's Josh Hagstead. Just don't want his name. You just have to introduce yourself as you walk.
Josh Hagstead, assistant principal at Timberlake.
Perfect. Chris McDougall, principal at Timberlake Middle School.
Carrie Murphy, principal, Lakeland Middle School.
Ryan Eberlin, principal, Timberlake High School.
Brianne Dirks, parent.
Allie Van Gundy, parent.
Jill Hatcher, parent.
We really appreciate everybody coming on a Friday, and I know the administrators are ready to be done for the summer too. So I just want to remind everybody we are being recorded. In front of you I made copies of 3 different sheets just so you guys kind of have perspective whenever we start looking at policy. ISBA, which is Idaho Board Association, they give recommendations. Sometimes they're mandated recommendations, and sometimes like we have to have a policy, but they'll mandate some of the language that we have to add per statute. So we always look at ISBA's recommendation. I also made a copy for you of our existing policy, so what we currently had that we tweaked last year, and then what our draft policy is. The dress code policy is a policy that we look at annually, so just to make sure that parents are aware and they know if there have been changes. So this will come around every single year of just looking at it, and then hopefully it's just kind of making some minor tweaks. But again, we really appreciate everybody coming. We're struggling. We sent this out, and we're pretty polarized in people's opinions as far as what should be in the policy, what shouldn't be in the policy. So we're just trying to get all voices heard and then put something that everybody feels like they can live with. So anything that you guys would like to add to that?
I have a question. Had they also seen the comments that we did receive, that the board did?
I did not send out all of those comments. I can't. We can pull it up.
That's fine.
But there's identifying information on there, so I didn't feel like I could print that off.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just wondering if they were privy to those things. Okay.
But we are pretty polarized from parents to staff across the board. There were some students that gave comment, and again, some parents want a really, really strict dress code policy. Some parents want no policy. So I mean, we have the full gamut of opinions. So that's kind of why we're struggling with what do we put in place so that it's consensus and everybody can live with it. So.
And respectfully, this policy is more significant at the middle and high school than it is at elementary, because those little people, are a little easier to herd than your cats. So we need your input. We don't know. I mean, when we first looked at this and made the revision of suggestions, which was the only revision, is when it became extremely hot. And when those revisions were made, we were going off of input from administration. So
that's how it came to us.
Yeah, exactly.
That these were
the policy committee.
That these were the recommendations of admin in the district, that they needed. Admin needed these things because the policy couldn't be enforced.
Right.
So the policy committee's like, okay, I mean, if that's what they need, so then it just turned into this thing it is today. And just so you guys know too, is that even though Michelle and I are on this committee, like we're just here like any other committee person. Like we don't speak for the board. We're not here as a trustee. We're here because we sort of got appointed to it, and we're still here.
That's true. We did. We were told, here, you can do this.
Yeah. So, I mean, we just try and do the best job we can. Take it back to the board, and it is what it is, kind of thing.
We have tried to put over the course of, I would say in the last 5 months, some structure to this. So every policy goes out to patrons for feedback. When the policy, we'll kind of do a draft policy, a revision of it, and then send it out to parents for input and stakeholders and administrators. And then it kind of comes back, and we spend that whole next meeting just going through all of the feedback. There's been lots of really great points that we either, it needed to emphasize or we left out or we took off. So the feedback has been crucial to putting these policies in place. And you know, whenever we send them out, I feel like we're starting to get pretty substantial feedback, which has been great. So. And we always invite anybody. The last policy that went out, the last survey that went out, we asked for different times. So we normally meet from we said 9 to 11. It never ends by 11. But we talked about having some different times so that it can be more accessible to parents, so that we, you know, we're having this kind of open forum every time we meet, especially when there's policies that people are passionate about. So anybody can come at any time whenever we're meeting. It doesn't have to be a formal invitation. We just want people, and we want input, and we want feedback, so it doesn't feel like it's a 4-man crew or you know, making a decision. So we're trying to be more transparent with this process.
And so the parents kind of have an understanding too. I know these are draft policies sent to us from the ISBA, which is the Political Action Committee, and they are heavily inundated with lawyer and legalese. So we've tried to look at the language and be like, can anybody read this and understand it? And let's try and simplify it. And then sometimes they don't even put the proper language from the statutes in. So we're going back and making sure that, you know, we're within the letter of the law, literally. But sometimes when we send these out, people are like, well, you don't need to do that. And it's like, yes, we do, because it's not in line with the statute. So, and people, you know, we're all people, we're human, so we make mistakes. But just so you all have a kind of a context of the whys behind what we do sometimes. So where do we begin?
Has everybody had a chance to look at the draft policy? Did you guys all look at that? So I think it would be helpful if we just kind of start from there, and do we just kind of go around robin, people just start talking about pros and cons? Is that how you'd like to do it, or? Sure, that sounds good. If you're passionate about it, speak up.
You want to start, Allie?
I see her, she's chomping.
Well, I like, it was nice that you guys got the draft, because a lot of the stuff that's crossed off on here was a lot of my concern, because as parents, a lot of us don't have the education to read through the fine print of this and see the layman terms of it. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like really unnecessary. Keep it simple and direct.
Yes.
I found a lot of indiscrepancies in the actual dress code. Like, I went and I did my homework once they asked me to come, and I have kids at the elementary school, the junior high, and the high school. So I took upon myself to call every person I know. And the best thing is the students, because they're the ones that are affected by this all the time. And it was policed. And high school is really hard. Kids have anxiety, and in my opinion, teachers need to be there to support them and not nitpick their clothes because they're being directed to do so. A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. Like, I can, you know, this looks great. I don't understand why it's a safety issue. That's really strong language. I mean, I get wear shoes.
Okay.
I get wear shoes, but like, your children aren't going to be hurt by clothing. A lot of clothing is expression. A lot of kids can't afford clothes that don't have holes in them. And when a teacher points it out, you are single-handedly, not even realizing it, you're bullying that kid. Because then everybody notices. That kid gets thrown out of class because she puts her head on her table like this, and her back's showing that much. That was my daughter. And she goes to the office, and they send her back because her shirt was fine. She just has a really long torso. So I really sat through it, and I wrote down my thoughts on what the actual dress code would be, minus all the extra language that you guys legally have to have in here, and just keep it simple. Like, no undergarments are shown. That's basic terms. Kids understand your undies can't be shown, your bras can't be shown. Like, you don't need the fluff, I guess is the way I'm putting it. You know, no midriffs showing visually. My biggest concern is skirts. I'm sorry, my daughter has a long torso, and I have a daughter that's going to be a giant. And a knee-length skirt, but you'll let them wear mid-thigh shorts, there's no difference in a book. Skirts, dresses, shorts should all be under the same mandate. and just make it reasonable. Like, you guys shouldn't have to be the moral police. That's parents' jobs. And so teachers need to be teaching and focusing on that, not going, can you put your hand so I can see where your skirt's going to be? Because it's either enforced or not enforced. But when it is enforced, I mean, put yourself in those kids' place. They are so excited to wear that new skirt to school, and they look cute, and it is mid-thigh, and mom looked at her and said she's cute, and then she has to go home. Or change or find something, like a lot of our schools have like clothing and stuff, but I mean, I have a hole in my shirt today, and if I point it out to you guys, you're not going to see it. And so I found your guys' dress code very harsh and very anxiety-ridden, and not necessarily geared towards loving our children and providing them a safe, mentally safe place to go to school. I feel like it's like nitpicky and naggy, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to want to go to school if someone's going to be worried that I have my hoodie up over my head because I had a bad hair day, or I'm just feeling cranky. I mean, I get there's security cameras and you need to see their faces. Teachers know these kids. I mean, you guys gotta trust the process with these kids, and I feel like when you do this and not interview the kids and talk to the kids, you're just not even taking them serious, and they're not gonna take you serious. And that was the biggest feedback I got from every single kid that I talked to. And not just two, not my own. I mean, I have access to lots of them. There was lots of giggling from junior high boys, so. So, I mean, I don't know if that helps at all, but I keep it simple. So I don't know if you guys want me to read what I made the dress code to be. Like, with their help, literally no undergarments are shown, no midriffs are shown visually. Pants up to your natural waist, skirts, dresses, shorts, all mid-thigh is your appropriate length. I mean, I'm sorry, us ladies, I don't wear skirts down to my knees. My legs would look that big. Jeans with holes above mid-thigh must be covered. I mean, it is the fashion nowadays, but like occasionally you get a belt buckle that's ripped. That's against dress code because your jeans are ripped at the top. So you get somebody that's really serious about enforcing the rules, and you're going to embarrass that kid that their jeans ripped. So if it's covered, like they can wear leggings and spankings, who cares? No tube tops. Tank tops is a 2-finger rule. I mean, that's how it was in elementary school, and my oldest, who's now 22 years old, was. This dress code was so simple then, and it made sense. Shoes on, obvious. And no illegal and sexually explicit clothing or accessories. You guys wrote like 2 paragraphs just to express that one thing. And no head coverings. I have mixed feelings on it. I have a kid that loves to wear hats. They're respectable and they're wearing a hat. I think of it no different than a girl wearing a headband or a girl wearing a like bandana. I mean, this is really just kind of two-sided. Like, you're either really focusing hard on the girls, but then the boys can't wear their hats. Well, hats are like necklaces to boys and earrings. They're accessory. I have 0 issue with my kid wearing a hat to school. And I don't feel it's a danger. I don't feel it is doing anything to distract from class. I mean, it's distracting from class when you tell my son to leave class to take his hat off. That's more distracting than just letting them wear their hat to school. So that was my thoughts in a nutshell. There's more if you want, but.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate all that input. Do any of the parents want to provide input?
Well, I agree with a lot of what she was saying. Just to simplifying it, I think for the kids especially, to just be able to say, and I have 2 sides, so I'm in the office as well at Timberlake, so, and I have 2 daughters that are there, but so like on the tank tops, I think the 2-finger length is good, or like, so as a parent, I'm like, that's fine. As a staff member who's trying to also trying to enforce stuff, I'm like, well, or no tank tops because teachers are fine, because just trying to like say, oh, they send them down, their tank top isn't quite 2 fingers like she said, and then we have to gauge it and then either send them back and say, oh, it looks fine to me, or I don't know. So that's the 2 sides is hard. I agree with the hats. I'm kind of, I don't always find issue with a hat. It doesn't necessarily bother me, or I think they like to express themselves that way. The thing that I got just talking to different people and even some of the moms here was that the dress code's just not enforced the same either with everybody.
Right.
And I think that's really hard. I think that's why simplifying it needs to be better because teachers don't want to, again, send kids out. Because a lot of times when that happens, it breaks that like relationship and then the student's just really upset. So then they don't learn anything the rest of that time. And then teachers don't want to do it because they don't want to break that relationship that they have with the student. So you have certain teachers that are really strict or sticklers on things, and so those classrooms will get, you know, and then but then there's all these other kids that are in different classrooms that then don't get. So it's just hard. It's such a hard. But mine was pretty similar to hers, just with the shirt. I think shirts need to cover midriff. And then mid-thigh, I think on everything. The only thing that I find hard with the skirts is I do see mid-thighs hard on the skirts because when they sit down, the skirt's not mid-thigh anymore. And some of the skirts are really not mid-thigh anymore. And it's just hard. Skirts are hard. And girls are shaped all different sizes and it's just a tough one. So I don't really know. I don't know on that one. But I do think that's why the knee length maybe comes in is that, but I get it, skirts aren't to their knees, they can't even find them. And then undergarments not exposed. I think that is a big one, just to leave it at that. So I think that, and then anything that just, I think disrupts school needs to be in there, just if it disrupts and the admin decide that it's a disruption, then I don't know, it's fine, but.
Okay. And she said it perfect, pretty much. She summed it up for me. Everything she said, I agree with. Halftime, big deal. They're the same to me as a headband or a bandana or something that a female would wear. And same thing, my daughter is in the same boat, so shorts and skirts are gonna look silly on her if they're knee length.
Well, most of our girls have like biker shorts underneath.
Yeah.
Like my daughter is a cheerleader and they can't even wear their cheer skirts to school because it doesn't need dress code. Even though
Well,
they
actually,
have,
there is a statement in here that
but it
says
doesn't
that,
say
you know.
class, it says it has to be an event.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line, and so that you don't want to ruffle feathers, but I consider increasing school morale when it's a home game and the football players are wearing their thing, there's cheerleaders.
Well, see, from
Yeah.
a board member's perspective,
That's an event.
that is an event.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
we
would think
didn't
every
see
Friday.
it differently, yeah,
that
we
would
saw
be-
one and the same,
Yeah, yeah.
But if you don't want to ruffle
Will we
feathers,
change
then-
that language? And that's what I'm looking for, the very original, because I think the very original
Those have that same
was
language.
all the language except for the delineated bullet points. But I can't find the original. The original's been removed from the drive.
So is
That's
it
it.
in the
So I guess
archives?
well, hopefully, because that's the thing is that this dress policy has existed forever and a day, and the only thing that was added were the bullet points. That was it. But and the bullet points came to the committee at the time with administrative representation as this is what we want, and that was put in the board said, okay, we agree. So it wasn't changed that much, but anyways.
Rosanna, it wouldn't be that would be the one that was just done last year.
Oh,
I think she's talking about in our actual drive.
That's
policy.
Yeah.
I think it was the original one. He
Yeah.
took it, he did some blotting on it.
Which,
I just-
So,
I wasn't
just while
working
people
on
are
it.
kind of looking, I think a piece to add to this, because you guys have all used the word simple. Our goal has been, so we have policies that haven't been looked at since 2007. We actually have some, I
Oh,
think, that are
before that,
like before
in the
that.
90s.
Yeah, and so some of that language is super outdated, and then whenever you get a draft policy from ISBA, there are some districts that just take what ISBA gives you and then that's what they replicate. But they're 5 pages long, a lot of them, it's a lot of legal language, they're all intersecting, they cross-section each other, and so our goal has really been to try to simplify as much as we can, recognizing that there is some language that we're required to keep in there, but then even having standalone policies, so we're not like 5 policies deep in a specific, so like student discipline is student discipline and that's where you go to. It's not like you find it a little bit here, a little bit here. And that's kind of how ISBA puts them together. They are woven into multiple fingers. So we have been trying to simplify that language just because, so it does take a long time because again, the draft that we get from ISBA, it's all legal. It doesn't always make sense. And they're multiple pages long. So that has kind of been the focus of trying to simplify life a little bit for everybody so that it's, you know, we're even like talking about taking out the warm and fuzzy, like just the, you know, it's the meat and potatoes of this is the policy, so it's, everybody can interpret it the same, so that's kind of been our focus and our goal for the last 5 months.
Well, and the warm and fuzzy to me sounds hypocritical when you're saying we trust you parents to judge your kids' clothes, but here, let me tell you how to judge your kids' clothes. Just take it out. And I don't even understand this one. No student shall be required to modify their natural head or facial hair, such as shaving, straightening, application of heat and chemicals.
That was a Supreme Court. That was a Supreme Court ruling. It went all the way to the Supreme Court because there was it found to be discrimination against students who express themselves through their hair. Okay. So there is a lot of stuff that sounds like, you know, why are we even there? And I completely agree.
I wonder if we can rewrite that so it makes sense though, because I was like, are they not allowed to, or they can, or it was like, are the schools that forced them to, and then they got in trouble, or?
Yeah, so that's where a lot of that, again, back to the legalese of the language, and from a board perspective, sometimes, because I try to sit here without that perspective, but knowing what the district has already encountered, we hesitate sometimes to remove language. Because unbeknownst to the general public, there has been incidences where our policies were not explicit enough and were a legal issue. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword, but.
Do you think by clarifying if it was a court decision, it would make it
usually
reasonable for being in there for a reason? Or you could add on, this would mean this in easier to understand terms for a parent?
Yeah, absolutely. I have no qualms with doing that whatsoever.
It sounds like it's covered under Title IX under bullying and discrimination.
No, it's actually not it wasn't Title IX, no. But anyways, it was its own case, but it should be added to the references at the bottom. That's the other thing that we constantly find with ISBA is that a lot of legal references, because we do the same thing. We read it and then we're like, where did this language come from? And then when we start researching, it's like, oh, well, it's directly from the statute. It's directly from the Supreme Court case. It's from whatever, but I mean, yeah, I think that's a great idea. You know, I think it should all be referenced, or at least if there's language that specifically points to some legal ruling, then it should be much more plain to anybody reading it. I mean, that's really what this is for, right? Is so that everybody reading it doesn't have to second guess what it means or go to an attorney to figure out what it means, right? We should just be able to read it and apply it and go about the day. I mean,
well, and then I think you'll have more adherence to it, and it'll be easier for the teachers too if you guys could even get it to one page. Because I think it gets lost as you look through a document and you're going, how much do I have to read through here to enforce something?
I agree.
Or for kids to understand it.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about trying to take out some of the fluff so that it is as simplistic. The other piece that we've talked about is really trying to take out the subjectivity of it all so that it's more black and white. And so it's not left up interpretation. Sometimes that bodes well, depending on the policy. Sometimes that it doesn't. And so, I mean, all of the things that you guys are saying are things that, like, that is, we kind of said this is what we're going to try to the best of our ability to do when we're building policy.
Yeah. Can we have copies of your notes before you leave?
If you need to read them.
Just because sometimes we get in the middle of conversations like, oh, what was that exactly that was
I can
said?
type them up at home too and send them to you.
Okay, yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you very much.
Sure, I can type them up.
I was going to type them up anyways, I just ran out of time.
I'd like to hear from administrators with respect to what the parents have just said and how the policy currently reads.
Before they start though,
Oh,
can I
sure.
just say two things? So I have a son and a daughter in the high school currently, and I'll have 2 more daughters coming up. But they have said that the dress code policy is not enforced consistently. So that's probably their biggest beef, is that some teachers will enforce it, some teachers won't, so there's a confusion over, well, I'm gonna push the boundaries as much as I can and then see what I can get away with. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just keeping it consistent for the kids so they know what is expected and they can, reach that.
Can I get some? Okay. I have a daughter in the high school, and I think the dress code policy should just be simple, honestly. Like no cleavage, no undergarments, no butt cheeks, no abdominal areas. Because, when these kids transition into the real world, there's going to be dress code policies at work, and,
For sure.
There's people that, I guess, violate it at work, at school, everywhere. So if we kind of instill that, with the kids, then they can use that when they move on. But
And I think it's a standard too that you're setting for them. They're at school, they're there to learn. It's not about, yes, they can express themselves, but they can do that outside of school too.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to having uniforms personally. So
Yay!
you're talking to someone who's just keep it simple for the kids. They are there to learn, just, I don't know. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, and I hear what you're all saying. And I appreciate your comment that, the board should not be the morale police, that's the parents' job. However, our policies, while they are not, we have some parents that don't take that responsibility serious. And then we set our male teachers up for certain situations that are not appropriate. And I don't want anybody in any type of situation like that. That is not appropriate, and it's our job to protect our teachers, male and female, from what parents may or may not instill in their children. So I hear absolutely everything you're saying, and I'm not about, rigidity. We do need the boundaries, and so we have to come to some consensus on how to map that out. So I need to hear from you people. We need to hear from you people.
I'll start.
Okay.
I think consensus is going to be really difficult, and I think you're seeing that in your comments. I think that's what we face every day in the school.
Right.
Is that is a really hard thing to find, and I understand and hear that it is not applied consistently. I know I have male staff members who will not enforce dress code, and like you just said, that's to protect themselves.
Right.
And so they can go to 3rd period and for the first time have a female teacher and get dress coded, and then it's, why didn't this happen first thing in the morning? So I hate dress code.
I do too.
It's so hard to, in the middle school, it is, I find super difficult because a 6th grader in her little running shorts looks very different than, and so then you start taking a personal look at things, and that's not the boat I want to be in, where I'm trying to apply it to different, I know that dress code changed a little bit last year. I think that whatever we go with, we need to get it out to parents early.
Correct.
And make them super aware, because some of the biggest frustration I heard feedback on was that they had already done their school shopping. So I think we need to be whatever we choose to go with. The other thing that is not addressed in here, and maybe it's just a matter of the times that we're living in, I see the biggest disruption to educational environment, not over any of this, but offensive political statements, and then on the other side of it for the LGBTQ community, and that coming to head in the classroom is so much more detrimental to the learning environment than how many finger lengths a tank top is. So the other thing, and maybe it's just at our building, but we're starting to see kids want to wear flags as capes to show their affiliation to a political side, whatever that is. And so we have kind of just put in a rule, no flags, but something like that would also help us at Lakeland Middle School.
Okay.
A lot of school districts across the country are having to do exactly that. Yep, it's like this close to Supreme Court material again.
Yeah, and I get it. Dress code is so hard. It's so
Yeah.
That's why uniforms are ideal. Just saying.
It does work.
yeah, that
Polo shirts and khakis.
Good try.
They can, we can pick different colors. I don't care.
Well, I'll piggyback off of Kara, and I appreciate Mama Van Gundy getting that input from the students, because that is a big deal, and honestly, we don't let that happen enough, in my opinion, to really get
It's their life.
where are we at. And again, I know they're the hormonally gifted, and there's we've got that, but I agree. I think if we and you said it, just we write this where it is a boundary, it keeps things intact for the most part. But then we really need to add in, like Carrie was saying, there's more to it that we need to add, I think, in this day and age that we're seeing that is not addressed in this current policy as far as our just the flags, the political,
Just doing them more
opinions.
specific to the First Amendment.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's where I'm at. And again, keep it simple, so simple. It has to, like, take this, when I look at it, and you said it well, when you all of a sudden look at this, you're like, I don't know where to go, I don't want to do it. But it should be like 5 bullet points and be done, and it says dress code.
We are trying to fix that, I promise
Yeah.
you. It's
Yeah.
just not.
And it should just be bullet points. It shouldn't be paragraphs, in my opinion. So that's my answer.
See, and I disagree with you on the bullet points, and that's not the first time. But the more specific, and everybody's saying simplicity is the key here, and I agree with that, but then we're add this. At the start of the year, I would greet every student at the start of the day and feel the necessity to look a kid from head to toe and address what they are wearing. And that lasted for a month, 2 months, and that's exhausting. And you're butting heads with kids, which I understand that's part of the role that I'm in. I have no problem with that. I'm not confrontational, like, hey, I'm going to see how many kids I can tick off in a given day. But that's what it led to. And I don't like that. I don't like Ryan being in that position or anybody being in that position. And I agree with the parents that they play a role in putting clothes on their kids and saying having a great day, and they deemed it appropriate, and that's great. But when we get specific, like the undergarments, that's great, and to me, I understand what you said, but and Jamie could attest, what I see is the bralette. I'm getting very good at but the bralette, that's an undergarment, but that's over the neck that you can see that. Would that be a problem now that I'm taking a young lady and say, hey, we got to have you change? Because specifically to the policy.
Come visit.
In what I look, it's not hats. Hats are, a dozen kids that we have to address, it seems daily. That's not the issue for me. The issue that I see in our building this year is the belly buttons, is the midriff. And I don't know if that is given to the discretion of the administration, the building, the board, if it ever came to that, if we had a problem with that, of what's too much. And I hate putting a length on that, because now we're getting tape measures out, or even the fingers. I don't want to be in that position either. We know what's appropriate. I mean, I hope that you put faith in us as parents and into a board that we're going to do what's in the best interest of your student and the school, and then we'll handle the situation, because we don't want to embarrass any kid. But by being specific in there and doing the bullet points and saying you can do this, you can do this, trends change. So next year it may not be the belly buttons, it may be something else that's not specifically highlighted in the policy that's going to cause us strife, and then we'll have to meet again. To where I think simplicity and put the decision of how to clothe kids into the kids to the parents and the administration to police that and see how that works without being so specific. If you deemed it appropriate and it raised to a concern of a teacher, other students, or the administration that is inappropriate, that's always a phone call that I'll make to you and say, hey, Susie wore this, it's causing some problems here, what do you think on that? I don't say, you got to come pick up your kid. We talk that through. And hopefully there's a consensus by the end of that phone call that, yeah, maybe Susie shouldn't have worn that. But I agree with your point that it's not so much skin showing is what's on the shirt that isn't specifically in here in what we've let go, because that's a Hornet says we're not going to touch that. That could be a problem in the future. But I think, and when it comes to me personally, it's a respect thing for me. If you talk cap, it's a respect thing. If you want to wear a cap, I don't view that as being disrespectful. For me personally, it's a respect thing. I'm a tie guy every single day that I come to work. Do I feel that the assistant principal needs to wear a tie to be effective? Absolutely not. But I come having respect for the position, having respect for the school, that's how I want to conduct business. And I always put it into your hands. If we had a problem with your student where we'd have to have a conference and you come into my office and I'm wearing cargo shorts and a tank top and my cap's on backwards, I guarantee you your first thought of me is, take a look at this tool. In any words out of my mouth, you would think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I could deal with it exactly the same way, but appearance is important. Regardless of the profession, the walk of life that the school is important. I heard, I think down there, a place of business, you're there to learn. There's got to be a level of respect of what you wear, that it isn't, and I'm all for individuality, but it is not about what I'm wearing at that point. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Kind of went a little longer.
That was a lot of thoughts.
I just want to say I disagree with McDougal.
Can we delete that?
I agree. My biggest, couple of the biggest ones is what was actually on the clothing, and then we had to deal with the flags and the capes. The hat issue, I spend a lot of time dealing with hats. I would very much love to not have to worry about that. We have people in our building with hats. Our maintenance people wear hats. They come into the building and they have hats on, and we're not requiring any of them to take those hats off or anything like that. So again, whatever we want to do with that, but from my standpoint, I don't care if a kid wears a hat. We know the kids well enough, whether he's got a hat or a hood on, whether we're trying to find a kid in a camera. Heck, we probably know more by their hat than we would, So to me, that's neither here nor there. And then again, it's consistency's great, but boy, we spend a lot of time dealing with dress code issues. It takes a lot of my time.
So, can I get consensus in this group? Is hats like a non-issue and just get rid of it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's simple.
I know.
Yay.
Well,
I see
disagree.
his point though.
I'm correct.
Like, it's a respect
How do you feel about it?
thing.
About hats in general?
Well, I mean, in the presence of the school building.
Just overall, I mean, we could spend at Lakeland High School all day, every day on dress code. To me, it's not necessarily the policy. I view policy as important, but it's to what one of the parents said down there is just consistency and being able to consistently to be able to navigate all this, because I mean, everybody said it. You'll have a kid that will get dress coded in 5th or 6th period, and they've been wearing the same thing all day.
Yep.
I don't feel like that's very fair to kids, and so I do feel like this isn't. I don't feel like this is our battle. I feel like the consistency is our battle, and so that's on us, and we gotta do better in that part. But as far as like the hats go, I do have a little bit of a difference of opinion on hats. I do believe it's the school still is a setting where we want to try to be professional, and it's a learning environment, and try to keep some of those old school values maybe still, where kids just take off their hat. You know, it's really funny, when I stand by the front entrance every single day at Lakeland High School and kids come in and I greet every single kid, it's not a negative interaction that I'll have when I ask a kid to take their hat off, and a couple weeks in, they'll just do it on their own, and there's absolutely no issue. But typically it's like, hey, don't forget about your hat. Oh, thanks, and they get it, and it's a non-issue, and they're going off. For some kids, they're like, they'll ask us, why can't we wear hats in the school? And and people can say it's a safety thing. I think I don't know if that's necessarily it. I think it's more of just probably a respect thing and just having that there. But am I super passionate about it? I mean, sometimes we have to think back. Well, like, what are we making our battles here? And sometimes, you know, you can step back and like, you know, we're creating this battle that when we should be focusing our attention on something else. But the hoods, you know, I talked to John Hatcher about the hoods, and he brought up a couple different things about hoods. We did have a couple kids walk through our building right towards the end of our day, and they had hoods on, and it took us forever to find out just exactly who that was, because we had never seen them before, and that took us a long time to just figure out who was in our building. And so the hoods does bring up a different scenario, you know, and if a kid was to be sitting in class with their hood over their head and their head down all day, do we want that teacher to be able to ask that kid, like, hey, can you sit up and maybe take your hood off and see, you know, participate in what we're doing here? I think that would be reasonable. And so those are kind of just a few of my thoughts. So whatever the dress code policy is, that's just the very start of it. I think the hard part is making sure that we're consistently implementing it in our school, and to making it to where it's not subjective as far as what teachers, one teacher feels like it's important that kids should wear hats, the next teacher they go to, they don't care. And so just making sure that we're fair and consistent, I think, is probably our biggest battle.
Yeah, which unfortunately we have no control over, or maybe fortunately. But the other thing, so do you feel like the complexity of being able to enforce the dress code is because it's not simple enough? Do you think that simplicity would make it easier to enforce? Do you think that's what it is, or you think it's just a personal preference and that's sort of what gets in the way of what the policy says?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that kids aren't supposed to you know, show midriff, and yet that's probably our biggest thing in school right now, is kids showing midriff. Maybe it's a half an inch, maybe it's 2 inches, maybe it's whatever it is, but you know, that's something that we could probably deal with every single day, and it could take up a lot of our time. So that's pretty clear to me that the policy states that, but yet we still see it constantly. So if we're really wanting to get rid of midriff, and we're really wanting to have our kids show up to school looking a certain way, or things like that, then we'll just have to make sure that we're extremely consistent on it, and making sure that it's being addressed from day one.
And then I could argue with, if we're in all agreement, yeah, caps allow caps because it's not a disruption of the educational day. I could say that about midriffs. Because I don't see anybody coming to me just very passionate. Oh, you know, I saw Susie's midriff. I can't learn today. I've never heard that. So if that's not disrupting the educational day, why are we specifically putting that at? So getting to the point, where do we draw that line, right? So my thing is, if we don't have a line and we're relying on what's appropriate and not disrupting the educational day, and then allow parents and administrators to address those individual situations when they come up, I think for me that would be much better for us. And I don't know if Ryan wants to add anything. I'm not putting him on the spot, but I think that would be better. Maybe Jamie can.
I'm a big proponent of student and parent voice as a parent, as a principal, and this is a tough one because there's a lot, and then one of the hardest parts of the job is staff, right? Because everybody varies so much on how they read policy and how they enforce policy, and I've talked to Lynn a lot because we're friends and colleagues, and I thought, well, can we take out the examples and like the paragraph that talks about what's students are not to wear or carry items of apparel which depict or allude to, and then it has a list of everything, right? Everything that's inappropriate. Does that cover us enough to where if we have to address a young lady or a young man about what they're wearing, the principal or the assistant principal or administration, their word is what is going to happen. So if a kid wears a shirt that says the F word, by what's in that one paragraph, that is inappropriate. I mean, that, you can't argue that. There's no arguing what's inappropriate based off of that paragraph to me. And our parents, these are our parents, we get along very well, because if I was to talk about her daughter and say, well, it's because this has not happened, but it's because her skirt comes up this far, she'd go, okay, that's fair. But by the more specific to Josh's point, the harder it becomes. And I don't know if that language has to be in there.
Oh, the bullet points, are you talking about?
The bullet points?
Yeah, no, that doesn't
That
have
was
to be
given
there.
to
That
us.
was given to us.
Said by the word that this is what administration wanted.
And I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be quite honest, I don't remember giving that input. I don't, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. I
Sure.
just don't remember
that wasn't
coming from any of me. I should say me. But when I talked to Len, I guess what I was getting at is, it sounds like you guys had discussed that. Are these bullet points necessary?
Yep.
And then you guys said, yeah, we want to back administration. That's why we're going to have them. And I thought, well, that was really nice. But at the same time, I don't know, and I could be really setting us up to fail if we don't have examples. And maybe you have some examples, but like the midriff comment, maybe it just says no midriff. Because as a teenager, and I don't know if you've seen their text messaging, if they read bullet point 1, they're not going to get past 2 words.
Yeah.
Because that is what bullet point 1 I think is trying to say on the list, but maybe it just says no midriff, no undergarments. But in the examples as follows, just says examples of as follows, and then in parentheses something like not all examples are listed, or not all, these are, I don't know, I think it might say that a little bit. And maybe it's short and brief, but I fall, and you know, as far as hats, I fall in a lot different spot on hats. It is exhausting to me. I mean, I think it would, I respect school and I understand that argument, so I'm not going to argue against the respect for school, but I think you could hire 3 full-time employees all day long at our high school and they couldn't handle dress code.
I agree.
Because there's so many different student perspectives, parent perspectives, staff perspectives, and we always upset people. Typically staff, quite honestly, because we may not see the example of the shirt when they lean over. I don't think I addressed that one, but somebody did in their office, and we're looking at it going, well, that's fine. And then that staff member probably is pretty upset at us because they sent it to us and we determined it. So that's dress could go round and round, but I do wonder if you sent out a simplified version to parents and staff, if they look at that and go, we can live with that, because how we patrol things at Timberlake is anything that's an interruption to the educational process.
That's the qualifier.
But to their point, the political stuff, that's a tough one, because we have the slogans that are going around that are really popular that maybe don't have a bad word, but we know what they're referencing. And then you have like in the LGBTQ community, they might just have a rainbow, and so people are upset about that, and then they're upset about that, and that's you can't win that one.
You can't.
So that's my 2 cents. A lot of sense, I guess, but.
Well, I mean, as principals, when you start your year off, what boundaries do you place the teachers in regarding this enforcement? Because the reasonableness of this policy starts at the top. And so respecting that, because I know at the elementary level, one child got sent home at the very end of the day because someone decided it was a violation in the building. And that's at elementary. So, I mean, it's not just at your level that sometimes someone doesn't jump on that, I'm gonna enforce this bandwagon. But what, as principals, do you do with your staff to show them, you know, this is sort of the expectation of reasonableness? Do you guys do something with them, or is it just, here's the policy?
Well, we go through the policy. I think one of the things, like for midriffs, they're smart. They hike their jeans up, pull their shirt down, walk,
Hunch over.
hunch over. They get to class, then they raise their hand, and then it's up here. And so, you know, it's one of those where, or I have a sweater on to start the day, and then my
Right.
sweater's off, and then my sweater's on.
Right.
And so I think that's where it gets hard is, if they want to break the dress code, they're going to find a way to break the dress
Right,
code.
right.
There's a loophole always.
Mhm. And so, I mean, we do go through it as a staff and talk about what it is and what it isn't, but it is a fight every single day.
Every day.
Well, is there any language that can be added to this policy to, I mean, you're talking about subjective interpretation of individual people.
Yep.
So I don't know how we can help you all with your staff and reasonableness. I don't know how to do that.
I don't think there is an answer. I mean, this has been something, I'm in 27 years in this business. And it's, the dress code is never, it's, like you said, you could hire 3 people per building to enforce it, and it's still not gonna get enforced.
And I don't
They're
take that
infallible.
as the students bad mouthing us or any school.
No, it's just.
That
No,
is a
it's a
fact.
reality.
It's just
Because
what it is.
yeah, I mean, we have so many individuals. I do think there needs to be a policy. I know that was in the last board meeting, and I understand why it was, hey, let's not do this at all. But for me, at the bare minimum, it would be something that's already in these paragraphs, where the administration or staff, I mean, we ultimately deal with it, but with a conversation with parents, would be able to resolve the issue. So we know. I don't believe we've ever sent a kid home for dress code. If we have, I don't know of that.
Okay.
Because typically we can, I think this year we had one young lady go home, but that was more because the parent was really upset at what she had on. So it wasn't.
Right.
But I don't know. I could be way off base. And that's, you got 11 schools, and so how I feel, and I respect everybody here, so
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. But I don't know if it would work by removing some of the specifics and just having the big ones. Or not.
Okay.
I don't know.
Want to find out?
I don't know if I want
Let's try
to
it.
find out.
Let's try it.
Because kids are going to go, okay, let's test this out.
But they're gonna test everything.
I mean, to Carrie's point, you're gonna find loopholes. I mean,
Right.
if you wanna find it and you wanna break it, and we have talked about this all over, because for we play devil's advocate on every side, so it's to your point, it's just not easy. Where do you draw the line?
I do feel, though, we go through at the beginning of the school year with all our students and go through the student handbook. And I think when they see, again, this, and even though they're reading it with their homeroom teacher, whatever you want to call it, they're going, I'm out. That's too much. So I think we do need to simplify it to encompass all the stuff.
We should do videos with you guys.
We
all
could do
wearing
videos.
the dress
We
and
do
the
what?
shorts, and when you guys go through the
We
handbook,
did talk about showing
do you
the
want
dress.
people wearing a short little
A midriff.
skirt and a midriff?
I think it would be good to tank top
And
though.
sitting down.
Oh,
Wait,
oh,
I
tank
think
jeans.
things would be a long torso though that would make us taller.
Seems like this could get us in
Just
trouble.
remember you're being raised.
Not in, I'm
Oh, that's
watching
right,
that
sorry.
video.
I think the biggest thing is no matter what is put, like, this has been going on for centuries, you guys. Remember, like, back in the 1900s, your ankle showing was risque and distracting in school. And the biggest thing is removing this huge burden off the teachers so they can keep it simple, keep it direct, black and white, so that way they can still build relationships with these kids. Because there's a big difference when you approach your kids. I've been parenting for a really long time, and most of you know me, I'm really a stern parent. I've gone into the school to punish my own kid when I found out something from another mom, and had to have a meeting with the principal because I needed to talk to him. And, you know, I wanted to talk, you know, but you have to be reasonable. Your kids, they're not going to listen to you if you're just a jerk and you're nitpicking them. They want relationship, they want boundaries, but they also want to be heard. And they want to have some say in it. And you get further with kids when you actually just give them a few minutes to, you don't have to agree with everything. They just want to be heard. So if you stifle this, you're going to cause more problems out here. And they can't focus on any of that outside stuff that they're worrying about if Joe has a hole in his t-shirt. I mean, their brains are developing, they get a little crazy, but And like midriffs are hard for girls because I can't even find a shirt right now that the rest of the shirt's included. But I loved how the high school dealt with it. They went on Tiger TV and they took a bottom shirt and they said, well, if you're missing the back of your shirt, we have it. And I loved that and I respected it because it was a way for them to keep it fun, be respectful, and have a relationship with the kids. And those that's how you get through to them, but not like, but you have to still have boundaries. Simple though, keep it simple. Because then that way it comes down to a phone call to the mom and then, or a phone call to the dad, and it's inclusive, or it takes it away one teacher's not being hated because she's following it to the letter of the law and also her own personal beliefs. It all comes down to it. And that's not fair to her, and that's not fair to him, and it's not fair to him that's choosing not to because he's scared of the recourse of it. It goes all over the place, and so if you just keep it simple, at least you have a narrow trail that you're walking on, and occasionally if they go this way, you're just pulling them back in. Whereas every day you have them all like everywhere. There's not going to be a simple answer. You're going to piss off somebody. Excuse me. That phrase, but
recorded, man.
you're gonna. But if you have the firm trail, for example, we have a cell phone contract in my house. My kids get a cell phone. They have a contract. They sign it. So if their phone's in their room when they go to bed, their phone's gone. I just point at the contract. It's fine. I kept it simple. There's not even a conversation. They just know. They just hang it up and they go. They're gonna push it. Trust me, they do. But I keep it simple, And so giving teachers and even administrators just a very black and white, keep it simple for the parents so we know what we can go shop for, Even I would be not even opposed to with skirts. They have it in elementary school. I get letters home if your girls wear skirts, make sure they have bike shorts on. Most of the girls do anyways, but I've never been confused about the dress code until this one came in, because I was like, whoa, there's no way I can find a knee-length skirt for my daughter who likes to wear skirts, so.
I definitely want to respect,
Yes.
time, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming on a Friday when there's sunshine out there, and so I really appreciate it. There are snacks over there if you guys would like to take a little snackers when you leave, but I really appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
We do.
It's okay.
You do.
Do we want to pause it for?
There is an I in team,
If the adults can't interpret what's written down and they can't be consistent, and that was part of mine, just get rid of it. That's how I dealt with my kids when they fought over it and they didn't follow the rules. I threw it away. If the adults can't find consensus and consistency, how will we ever expect the kids to do it? So I think we're expecting more out of them than what the adults are willing to do. That's what I heard out of everything.
That's a valid point.
Well, I get everybody's, even with the hat thing and the respect thing and all that, which I sort of lean that way anyways, but I was always also very much into individuality and expression, as long as it's not physically hurting somebody else. So I don't know. I appreciate all of your simplicity and your bullet point ideas. That's why I wanted your notes. Maybe we can take that to the board and come to some kind of consensus other than a uniform.
Uniform is the way to go.
But I do appreciate everybody showing up. That was awesome.
With hats.
Yes. Yeah, I really appreciate the input. Yeah, very much so.
He's really in my brain.
This one like always will.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Let's do it.
Good to see you guys.
So have
How was